work looks like and what the municipalities would get. But we really wanted to get in front of the city councils just to try to get a pulse if this is something that they're willing to support, so we can hopefully include that as we are developing the IGA. So before I go any further, I want to ask you guys if you do have any questions, but real quick. Ashley, would you happen to feel like there was something I missed that you felt was important for me to include?
No, I can just kind of go over quickly what we've done so far since October 26th, when we've activated. So we've activated 5 different date nights already and served 37 distinct households already. So we're well on our way to proving the need for swap, since we've already had to activate 5 different days just in the past 3 weeks. So we anticipate we'll have to activate again this weekend, possibly Friday. And the need is definitely out there, and it's continuing to grow, and folks are starting to become more and more aware of it as more and more partners and service agencies are aware of the program as well.
Great. Well, I do see 2 hands. I have Mayor Pro Tem Wolford and then Councilmember Duran-Mullica.
Great. Thanks, Paulo, for being here today. It's great to have you back chatting about Adams County's plans. So my questions are about the program that y'all are running this year. I seem to remember on the first night that you all had the severe weather shelter or plan in place, that anything was closed because of severe weather. And I imagine that there are going to be situations that come up in the future in which anything is closed for severe weather or another reason. Have you all given any thought to other locations that could be accessible for folks? I know, I'm just curious what your plans are there. And then I have a couple other questions, Paulo.
Sure, that sounds good. Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem Wolford. I can certainly start. And Ashley, if you feel like that there's something that is worth including, feel free to jump right in. Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Mayor Pro Tem Wolford. As you can imagine, it's pretty unique that on the very first day happens to be a day that Anythink Library closed. What I can say is I did reach out to Anythink Library just to see what their frequency of closures actually occurs throughout the year. And one of the things that they told me is from a 13 to 14 month period. So from January 2019 all the way through February 2020, so just pre-COVID, they only closed 3 times due to weather. If you look at the fact that there were about 65 to 70 severe weather days that were defined by MDHI for Denver, that wasn't really a whole lot, 3 out of 65. However, I do acknowledge that we do need to figure out solutions that we have for those 3 days, because we certainly want to make sure that we are housing individuals. Right now, what we have is Almost Home does only have 1 staff member who is working on the intake. But one of our goals that we're trying to do is with our sheriff's department in Adams County is we are distributing if we haven't already, we're going to start soon, distributing vouchers to those sheriff's office, where if they do encounter individuals, they can certainly pass that along or distribute that voucher to a resident. And so with that, one of the things that Ashley and I were talking about is hopefully with participating municipalities who want to partner with us on this, is we can try to problem solve ways for us to distribute other vouchers, including maybe even working with the police department. Ashley, did you have some thoughts based off of conversations that we may have had?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent way to move forward, is being able to offer these to police and EMS throughout all the different cities, just because it's a after hours access. And then as well as in the event that anything does close, we do have our Almost Home space that we've been able to use as a backup location. But we're also in conversations with Anythink about some alternative locations that are in a protected but sort of outside area of the Anythink on Huron, which could be better given COVID's escalation again. So we're trying to work through that, but also make sure that there's after hours access through the police, fire, emergency. And we've been giving stacks of vouchers that are already pre-cut in terms of the voucher number, with instructions on how to intake and how to provide that information back to our family care coordinator that's implementing the SWAP program.
And if you don't mind to just chime in real quick. So I did talk with Chief May. So if council does approve partnering with Adams County on the funding requests, Chief May has said that, he is willing to be one of those intake locations at the police department should any think libraries not be able to do that because of weather, and then also after hours. And so Almost Home, would be providing that intake training. And then as backup, Jessica Holt, who is our community resource navigator, would also get training. And then myself would get that training as well. So we would have backups to the backups. So we have talked about that.
Awesome. I'm really glad to hear that y'all are starting to think about backup plans and such, because I think in the situation I was referencing earlier, the individual who was seeking shelter was asked to go to Brighton, which was a pretty significant ask for them when they were here in Northglenn. And so figuring out transportation was a barrier, and getting access to a phone was a barrier, and having money to pay for transportation was a barrier on an already cold day where roads were kind of yucky. So I appreciate that you're looking at your municipal options to ensure that folks don't have to make it all the way out to Brighton. The other question I had was, I guess I seem to remember that with the vouchers that these are specifically for hotels. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And I know that's one issue that we've already faced here in Northglenn, and that, individuals experiencing homelessness often have an issue with is having access to an ID, a government issued ID. And so I know for the situation that we were working through here in Northglenn, the individuals who were seeking shelter weren't able to get a voucher because they didn't have ID, and then were provided another resource that they had to pick up a voucher in person down in Denver. And so I guess I'm trying to figure out, have you all started to think through how you're going to serve individuals who don't have identification? And, are you thinking through all of the different gaps that somebody may experience so that, somebody doesn't get so frustrated that they just give up?
Well, I can jump in with that one. We have been working with 4 different hotels that we've been on board with the SWAT program this year. So, and some of those are able to accept individuals under our MOU that don't have IDs. So we're working through that and bringing on more hotels that are willing and able to work with our folks. And in addition to that, kind of going back to the first day of activation, we were really trying to activate early and ahead of time. So if we know that a storm or cold weather is coming, trying to activate that day prior so they have the voucher in hand and ready to go when that cold weather or severe weather hits. The 26th was just kind of a perfect storm. The program hadn't started yet, and we couldn't activate ahead of time since we hadn't started, and we weren't able to issue those vouchers ahead of time and plan really ahead of time since it all started on the exact same day. So we'll continue to bring on more motels and resources that folks can access. We brought on another hotel that'll accept pets. So those that have pets that haven't been able to be served by other shelters can now have access to a warm place to stay during inclement weather. So we are continuing to evolve the program because it is still in that pilot phase of this year. So we are, we identified quite a few different things that we needed to change from the first activation period to where we're at now. And we really believe that we're on a really successful path to be able to make sure that all of our folks' needs are being met.
Awesome. That's good to hear, especially the pet piece. I know so many folks that would prefer to stay outside rather than, have to abandon their pet or try and make other arrangements. So I'm really glad to hear that you all are thinking about that, and appreciate you answering my questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Duran Malika.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. First of all, so just to be clear, you're asking from each city $10,000. Is that correct? And have you guys thought about doing like a tier to that? Typically, whenever we all buy into something, we typically have a tiered approach. Because, I don't really expect, the point of the program isn't to say, hey, this $10,000 goes to Northglenn. You can't really do that since these may or may not even be residents of our city. And so I was just curious if you guys thought about a tiered approach for those funds. And then my other question is, when you're thinking about partners, have you guys thought about working with the North Metro Fire Department as a group of folks who might be able to partner and maybe intake on some severe weather days? Just a thought.
That's a great question. Thanks, Councilmember Mollica. Just to answer, you did think about a tier approach, especially when we looked at the census and other ways that we have partnered. We did look at ways that we could try to do a tiered approach in terms of what the population might dictate. I think the challenge that we had in looking at that was really the thinking behind where our population is for people experiencing homelessness and where the usage might come from. And so, for example, if I looked at Thornton and Westminster, who does have the highest population in Adams County, you're looking at a good part that actually probably would not have a lot of individuals who might be accessing these services. So that's really why it kind of came down to that, of us not really being able to track who's going to be using it, just like you had pointed out, which makes a whole lot of sense. And then combined with the fact of the population won't necessarily dictate how many individuals from that particular community will be using that. To your point on the North Metro Fire Rescue, yeah, absolutely. I think it makes sense for us to reach out to whoever we can to partner on that. And that's one of the things that Ashley and I talked about, is how can we engage certain first responders. I know when I had talked to our director, Matt Rivera, of Community Safety and Wellbeing, one of the things that we talked about is, obviously, as this program evolves, I wonder if there's a way for us to really start connecting and providing vouchers even to AdCom, and utilizing AdCom to help distribute those vouchers as opposed to just the law enforcement officers. So I think it's just the evolution that will come from as this program develops, and the many things that we can learn from the pilot.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Councilmember Escobar.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I have, I think the questions that I had, really, most of them got answered. I'm just curious, is the voucher for one night only? Does it include multiple nights? And how are family members or partners treated as this? I mean, can me and my girlfriend get a room together? Do we have to have a separate room? And what's the value attached to that voucher? Or is there a limitation as to what the county is willing to reimburse or pay the hotel proprietorship for that lodging?
Great, and I can take that as well, unless Ashley, you certainly want to chime in. The vouchers are good for the severe weather nights, but if they are on consecutive days, they just continue. Is that correct, Ashley?
That's correct. It's just for the duration that we've activated.
Yep, so if it's on consecutive days and it happens to be a severe weather day for 3 days in a row, then that would be good for 3 days. And Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong too, there are no limitations. It's whatever they consider to be a family, whether it's you and your girlfriend, or it's you and 5 dogs, or whatever it might be. But basically, it's what you ever dictate needs to be living within that voucher, correct?
Correct. So it's whatever you deem your household. There just are space limitations per room. So if you have a large family or a large household, you might end up spilling into a couple of different rooms versus all in one room. So it just depends on your household size, on how many rooms you have.
And with that, Councilmember Escobar, you actually brought up a good point too. One of the things that this pilot is being able to tell us as we try to increase this is really what our people experiencing homelessness population looks like in terms of the size of the families, the number of pets, things like that. As Ashley mentioned too, they're going to be entered through HMIS, which is the Homelessness Management Database, that really allows us to collect information on the population and be able to provide services better.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Paula, really quickly, I'm inferring that this is going to all of council and not just our outside agency funding committee, in part because there's a need to share this information with our community. And so having it at a full council meeting, I think, makes a lot of sense. Is the ask that we just come to consensus that we're going to partner, and the ask is $10,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, what I'm really trying to get is a nice pulse and the papal blessing, if you will, Mayor, that there seems to be some relative consensus or some interest within each council for us to move forward. Because obviously, we also don't have an intergovernmental agreement to present to you today, and that will come to your point at a future council meeting. So we can certainly be very transparent with this. So we just wanted to make sure that we are understanding that council members are supportive of this before we finalize drafting that IGA and working with your county attorney's office or city attorney's office.
Okay. I did have the same question as Councilmember Mullica as far as, we're one of the smallest municipalities in that group. And so carrying the same weight, I mean, I understand because we completely straddle I-25 and not all communities do in the same way that we do. And I could see that you probably have some studies on, where we're seeing this need. But it would be something that I would ask is how can we, because it does seem a little strange. I fully support it because I know there's a significant need. But that's just a question I had. So I see two more questions, Councilmember Goff and then Mayor Pro Tem again.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, my question is, first of all, I would say that I do support this. I do see that this is a need that needs to be filled. We just don't know at this point, it sounds like, where these people are like what municipality they reside in or whatever the terminology is. So we don't know the layout. But the question I have then is, so what kind of data are you going to collect? This is a pilot program, I understand. And so what kind of data are you collecting, and would that help us be able to make, or to understand that for the next time, like a year from now? I'm assuming you or someone like that will come back and ask for something similar or more or less, or you've learned some things from the data you've collected. So I'm just curious, what kind of information are you going to be compiling? What are you looking for?
Sorry, my screen went weird, so I was like trying to figure out where my unmute button is, and that's actually a really good question. So first of all, I think City Manager Geyer said I can come to council meetings all the time and ask for money, if I remember that correctly. I'm totally kidding. So with that, really what our intake assessment is it does gather information on who our population is, and we're trying to collect all that information to better gather all that. So you'll see information on there, a lot of your basic demographic question. There's also going to be some questions on there on how long they've been homeless, how many separate times they've stayed in shelters, how long they've been living in this community, where they slept the night before. I mentioned before the reason why they did not access the shelter, if they have reservations on that. Whether they've served in the armed forces, if they have had any substance abuse issues, if they have a mental health disability, physical disability, stuff like that. So certainly as we start to gather this information, we want to be able to aggregate this information and then utilize that for our future presentations, as well as guiding some of the work that we're doing.
Mayor
Ashley, is there something sorry, I was going to see if Ashley wanted to add something to that, or if that covered it.
I think we'll also be able to track as we meet with folks for case management, because everyone's offered and when willing provided the opportunity for case management and rehousing assistance. So we'll be able to identify when we've been able to meet with somebody, meet goals, be able to transition them into some sort of either rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing program through the COC, or be able to rehouse them into market rate housing with our own supportive services.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford and then Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ashley just literally answered my question that I was going to ask about the case management. So thank you, Ashley.
Perfect. Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you everybody for being here with us tonight and for your work on this topic. Have you spoken to other municipalities on this, or are we the first?
Yeah, that's a great question. Councilmember Peterson, you are the first that we're doing a presentation on. However, we have started talking to the municipalities and they're either getting us on their calendar or they're saying that there's some interest from their city manager level. So we are meeting with Thornton next month. Commerce City has also expressed interest, as has Westminster. So we're starting to have the dialogue, but you were the first one that we are doing a full-on presentation for thus far.
Thank you. And as you're seeking the $50,000, what happens if you don't get total buy-in? What happens if one municipality says yes and the 4 others say no? Do you just collect that money and try to do what you can with it with that money?
That's really the plan. That's why when we talked about how our goal is to be able to distribute 140 vouchers per month, that's with the mentality of the full budget that we're looking at. However, if we're not able to get the full ask, that will obviously just impact how many vouchers we're able to distribute throughout the year.
Okay. And I appreciate this and I favor this program, but not as a trailblazer. And so I would ask council to consider wait until and I'm in favor of this, but I'd like to know what the others are doing first. If 2 or 3 localities say yes to this, it might give some perverse incentive, quite frankly, for another city to say, well, 2 or 3 are already picking up the lion's share of the bill. Why should we jump in on this? So I'm in favor of this, but I don't want Northglenn to be exclusive in this in terms of our burden.
Councilmember Brown.
Good evening. I'd like to echo everybody else's sentiments that I think this is a great program. One thing that I wanted to say to you, Randall, is that a lot of times what we need is a city to be that barn buster, you know what I mean? To be the first one. Then everybody, his next approach will be when he's at Thornton, well, Northglenn is already on board for this. So that we use it as a selling tool, basically, to get everybody on board. I would be very much in favor of this tonight, or when you can bring the IGA to us. I think it's important. This winter season is already, has already proven to be interesting, to say the least. So I just wanted to say that I'm in favor of the $10,000, and I would not want to wait until other municipalities approved in order for Palo to be able to start saying that Northglenn approves and Northglenn wants to be on board.
Thank you. Councilmember Downing.
Thank you. I just want to weigh in saying I do support this program. I think it's a much needed program. And we've seen what you have done in the past. And I do applaud you for it's more of a trailblazer from the past than currently. So I do definitely support you in this program. Thanks.
Councilmember Duran-Malika.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that I do support this. I've talked with several council members from Thornton and Westminster, and we've talked about how something like this as a collective needed to be done for quite some time. And so I'm really excited that, this is just the start of that, because we do agree that it is a regional issue for everyone, and we all have to kind of work together to figure out a way to provide the appropriate services to serve our unhoused folks. So I'm really excited about the pilot. I am really excited about seeing some of the data that you talked about collecting. And I see this, frankly, as a potential to build into something that's longer term and sustaining. And of course, we'll have to look at, how this program does, but, really creating a more robust program that, involves more case management. What happens after that snowstorm passes? What are the next steps, and how do we support those people moving forward? And so thank you for doing this work. I'm really excited to see what some of the other cities have to say, and I'm hoping that we could work collaboratively together moving forward to address this really important issue. So thank you.
Councilmember Witkovich.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that I get my support out there. I echo everything that Councilmember Brown had said. I think this is important, and I would definitely support the $10,000, and I'm absolutely okay with you sharing with everybody else that we're on board and that we're going to be contributing. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Yes, I think you have consensus. Do you have any other questions for us?
I do not. Thank you. And honestly, yes, I would be very surprised if at least four cities did not agree to this, just because early conversations that we've had, they're all pretty much waiting for just to get us on the calendar. So just know that this is going to be the plan moving forward. I also do hear the concerns with regards to not having a tier system in terms of how we're distributing it. So as we're developing the IGA, certainly want to start throwing those numbers together and see what that would look like. And so really all I'm seeking for today is just the papal blessing to proceed. And I can certainly work with City Manager Geyer to get her the numbers and get the pulse and understand what that would look like, and then make that decision moving forward. The other thing I'd also like to add on here is, while we are talking about the severe weather activation program and the times that we'll certainly need it, one of the other things that the county has focused on and is expanding on this year through Almost Home is that we will now be distributing more motel hotel vouchers year round. So we did get some funding for that. So we are hoping to provide more motel hotel vouchers for our people experiencing homelessness, regardless of what the weather looks like. So I just wanted to share that as a way for us to make sure that I'm hearing you guys into the needs of housing individuals who are experiencing homelessness. And while I did have more presentations, initially what I had done with that for you guys was, here's the homelessness program going all around. But when I saw the agenda on Friday, and I know that you guys wanted to focus on SWAP, I can certainly stop my presentation here, because one of the things my parents have taught me is quit while you're ahead.
If you have more to share, you may want to take this opportunity. Do you want me to go back to the presentation?
It would honestly be up to you guys. I just have a few things that we're working on, but you know what? We don't necessarily need to do that. One of the things that I will say is there's certainly more municipal alignment with regards to how we're doing outreach, particularly on for people experiencing homelessness. And I just want to say that Rupa and Jessica have been incredible to work with as we were trying to align more. So I know that there's been conversations with Thornton, and there's conversations of how we're going to start doing the HMIS stuff. Dayworks program is going well. And one thing I really want to thank you guys for, the City of Northglenn, and I'll stop here, is thank you for being an incredible partner to our mobile shower and mobile laundry program that is happening on Tuesdays at Crossroads Church. And I guess it's cold now for showers. So just mobile laundry program at Crossroads Church. You guys have been an incredible partner for us. So just really thank you for all of your support, and looking forward to connecting back with you all.
Okay, looks like Councilmember Malika has her hand up before you go.
Sorry, I did have one more question that popped in my head. How are our staff and or councils going to be included moving forward with this pilot project? So do you guys have like a standing Adams County meeting where you have like all the homelessness coordinators or community coordinators already? And is that where information is going to be continued to be given to the group?
That's a good question, Councilmember Mullica. So one of the things that I had on there was I was going to talk a little bit about the Adams County Coalition for the Homeless, which were really all the faith-based groups, the municipalities, the nonprofit organizations, the housing providers, things like that. One of the things that we did decide to do is to put the Adams County Coalition for the Homeless on a slight hiatus while we try to figure out what their purpose is. And the reason for that is it got to the point where I think the meetings were 2 to 3 hours, and it was just nothing more than updates as opposed to the work being done. And so I think back to Commerce City Cultural Council back in 2009, 2010-ish. City Council had put them on a year-long hiatus, brought in a new group, and they're like, all right, let's figure this out now that we have a purpose. And now that group is thriving. So we're kind of taking a similar model on that. And so with that, one of the things that we are doing is we are convening certain groups on an as-needed basis. So for example, we met with the McKinney-Vento liaisons last week as we tried to figure out how we can better serve the schools when they're serving the people experiencing homelessness. And so municipalities, we actually just had a meeting, I think, a week or two ago, and there's now some conversations that are trying to make it on a monthly basis and really trying to figure out how to align our outreach stuff. So I feel like once we start convening these smaller groups and we are starting to really do the work, is then we can figure out how we can better utilize Adams County Coalition for the Homeless for the larger work and really delivering on all this stuff. But right now, I feel like we need to incubate those little groups first. And so, yeah, we are working more closely with Rupa and Jessica and Jalen and Ben and Adam and Thornton, Westminster with Kate, really just the whole group. We're really trying to align more about outreach efforts.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think I would just like to have some updates throughout this pilot of how things are going and things like that. So what are some things that you guys learn along the way? I mean, it's a really important issue for our city, and we have, you know, a community group that is really dedicated to this work. So we want to get them involved as much as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you, Council Member.
Yes, I agree. So thank you for that. I think that's it. So Paolo, thank you for being here. We appreciate this. Great presentation.
Sure. Great. Thank you all. Thank you for the work that you all do. Also appreciate Ashley coming. You guys all have a great night.
Thank you.
Hi, Ashley. Okay, we're moving into our second item, the Colorado Legal Services Pilot Program Update. So we have Lizzie Ullman, CLS attorney. Oops. You know who's doing dishes?
Yeah. Hi.
And Cody Erb, Westminster Assistant to the City Manager, is presenting information to Council about this program. So I do have the presentation, and I will welcome, and I will pull that up for you, and we'll get started.
Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, this is John Asher, and I am Executive Director of Colorado Legal Services. And I just wanted to introduce not just Lizzie, but to thank Heather Geyer. You know, you came to this party a touch later than the Broomfield, Adams County, and a number of other municipalities, but she certainly when she heard about it, wanted to participate, and we worked together to make that possible and to make the IGA apply to Northglenn as well as the other participating partners. We have been fortunate to really be able to focus attention on tenants in need in Adams County. I have been fortunate to do that for the past 2 years. Look forward to trying to continue the pilot. We started the program with Erin Bidman as her attorney. More recently, we have been fortunate enough to have Lizzie Ullman join us as the grant attorney. And I will turn it over to her to update you on the work of the pilot over the past couple of years. Thank you, Mayor.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Okay, so can you guys see the presentation? Excellent. So Lizzie, I will hand it over to you.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. As John said, my name is Lizzie Ullman. I began working at Colorado Legal Services on the pilot program in March 2020, 2 weeks before the pandemic. So in the presentation today, I have 4 goals to discuss the goals of our clinic, the processes and the types of cases that we're working on, to discuss who we serve, to discuss a lot of statistics from both Adams County and broken down for Northglenn specifically, and then a final overview of our processes. I also am glad to share Northglenn specific client stories, as well as more about the eviction process if there's interest in the questions, and answer any questions. We are providing a full detailed report in the coming week that will outline all of our work in more detail from December 2018 through October 2020. And then in January 2021, we will provide a full report with all of the data throughout the project. Next slide, please. So, the goals of our clinic are to reduce preventable evictions, and that is through assisting people who have received a demand, who are having conflict with their landlord, or of course, people who have a court case. To mitigate eviction-related consequences, so to assist people in finding housing and provide resources for them, and to connect tenants with community resources as much as possible. Next slide, please. We serve all tenants from Adams County, and we focus on specific types of cases that will have the most impact. Specifically, tenants who are in subsidized housing. So those are housing choice voucher cases, as well as project-based Section 8 cases in Adams County. Cases with procedural issues, so where the legal procedures have not been followed properly, we represent those tenants in dismissing those cases. In non-payment of rent cases, and I'll focus more on this because this has been the most significant type of case we have been focused on during the COVID-19 pandemic. Cases with other types of lease violations. We also work on mobile home cases, both on landlord-tenant cases and cases under the Mobile Home Park Act. Next slide, please. So throughout the project from December 2018 through mid-October, our data goes through October 16th, 2020, we represented and advised 363 households in Adams County. There were 695 people in those households and 408 children in those households. I also want to state for the rest of the slideshow, I'm going to divide it into phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 will be prior to COVID from December 2018 through March 2020, and then phase 2 will be March 2020 through the present. During phase 1, we set the project up, we developed resources for Adams County tenants, and an attorney was in Adams County court every day that there was an eviction or FED docket. That's typically Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We are also in Broomfield County. There is a grant attorney there as well as a grant paralegal. The attorney assists, provides advice to any qualified tenant. So any tenant who approaches us and says they'd like legal advice, we screen them to make sure there's no conflict, that they are income eligible for our services, and meet other screening criteria. If they do, then we draft an answer for them and provide advice about the process that day in court immediately. And then after court, we continue on to assist them in negotiating with their landlord or representing them in court to meet the goals that they have provided to us for their housing, whether that's to keep their housing or to move. Anyone who is not eligible for our services, we cannot provide legal advice, but we still can provide legal information about the process and make referrals to other services or organizations that may be able to assist them. And that would primarily be people who are over income for our services. In phase 2, which is the COVID times, we have focused on community engagement and making sure that community members are aware of our resources and connecting tenants with our office. I have presented Know Your Rights presentations on eviction law, and it has been changing rapidly as new federal and state laws have been popping up monthly. I also have been participating in the Adams County Response and Recovery Task Force and the Adams County Rapid Settlement Task Force. Our office, Colorado Legal Services, is available virtually to assist tenants in all court procedures. We have attorneys available every single day for when tenants contact us, sometimes with court that day, and we draft all paperwork and get it to them or to the court that day so that they are not defaulted and don't have a judgment against them. It's a different process during this time, but we believe that we have been able to meet the needs of tenants in Adams County and Northglenn fairly well during this time. Next slide, please. This is just a breakdown of the households we've served by municipality. In Northglenn, we've served 41 households, and that's 111 people. Next slide, please. In addition, we have Colorado Legal Services has partnered with Maker Housing Authority to participate in the Rapid Relief Program or Rapid Settlement Program. Each municipality and Adams County have contributed to this, and the program provides both legal assistance to tenants facing eviction for non-payment of rent cases, as well as rental assistance. So in Adams County right now, Maker Housing Partners is not providing rental assistance at all to tenants who apply because they had to close due to processing all of the backed up applications on October 5th. And Almost Home does wonderful work, also providing assistance, but sometimes does not have it available. Through the Rapid Settlement Program, Maker Housing Partners has made that money available to Colorado Legal Services tenants facing evictions within 21 days. So it streamlines the process. This benefits landlords, this benefits tenants. It allows tenants to remain in their home during this time. It allows landlords to receive the funding that they need to stay afloat during this time. Colorado Legal Services does the work of representing tenants in the court case, of negotiating with landlords. Sometimes landlords are hesitant to believe that the money is going to arrive because they've waited so long for it, as well as provides the complete application to Maker and ensures that it's processed within 21 days by providing all follow-up documentation. And then for tenants with court cases, making sure that the judgment is vacated or the case is dismissed upon receipt of the money. Under Colorado law, landlords are not required to accept rental assistance after a court case is filed. We have had extreme success in the program in negotiating with landlords and having cases accepted and dismissed. In Northglenn specifically, 6 households have received Rapid Settlement Program dollars. We've represented many more during this time, but under this specific program, tenants have received rental assistance. They received $46,000. 4 of those cases were already in court. Colorado Legal Services was able to negotiate with landlords. All of those cases have been dismissed or reached a stipulation at this time. So none of those tenants have a judgment on their record. 2 of those cases had a live writ with the sheriff's office when they were referred to us, and we were able to negotiate, have the writ stayed until the funding was received, and then have the case dismissed. All of those tenants have been able to pay their November rent. So that funding allowed them to get back on their feet and move forward. 2 of those cases, the landlord had not filed eviction yet, and Colorado Legal Services, working with Maker Housing Partners, was able to prevent the eviction from being filed. We continue to work on this until Maker tells us that there is no money available, and then we will continue to represent tenants and refer them to other sources.
Cambria, what's going on? Oh,
Sorry about that. Next slide, please. In addition to the 363, or I apologize, including the 363 households where we provided direct advice or representation, Colorado Legal Services has provided information or advice to a total of 644 clients. So some of these clients who contacted us did not have an eviction case pending or an eviction issue. They had a warranty of habitability issue, their lease was ending, and they had questions. Many of these people just wanted their legal questions about housing answered, in Colorado Legal Services, through our complete agency, was able to contact them to provide legal advice, to provide resources, and to assist them in answering their questions and preventing further legal issues. Next slide, please. Of the people that we served, 26% were in subsidized housing, 7% were in manufactured homes, and 67% were in all other types of low-income housing. Like I said, we've divided this into phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 was prior to COVID, and phase 2 is during COVID. So in phase 1, 35% of people were able to retain their housing, and 80% were able to do not have an eviction judgment. So either we were able to prevent a judgment from being entered, or we were able to negotiate with the landlord for the judgment to be dismissed. Many of the 45% we assisted in a move out agreement, so they didn't have to have the sheriff come to their house and move out immediately. Instead, we were able to negotiate for more time and the opportunity for them to find somewhere to move and to provide moving expenses if necessary. Give them time to apply. Next slide. I'm very proud that during COVID, 85% of people have been able to stay in their homes who we have assisted. And these stats for phase 1 and phase 2 are Adams County, not just Northglenn. And then 85%, we were also able to prevent an eviction judgment. This is largely because most of the cases right now are non-payment of rent cases. And so with that rapid settlement money, as well as with the various moratoriums that have been in place, we've been able to assist tenants. Next slide. Next slide. In total, through Maker Housing Partners Rapid Settlement Program, we've served 43 households between August and the present, and the households have received $175,681, and that is all of Adams County. That's just Colorado Legal Services clients. So that's 3 to 4 applications a week since the program began. Next slide. Like I said, in addition to serving clients directly, we have been focusing on community outreach. These are some of the organizations that we have worked with and have presented with. I've presented to the Tri-County Health Department, to nurses, to UNES Colorado, and to various other organizations who've asked for virtual presentations, either to tenants or to their staff regarding the process. We have had to do more than one presentation because Colorado and federal law have changed so significantly since March. We've had the CARES Act, we have had significant executive orders, and currently the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention order is what is controlling eviction prevention right now. Next slide. We've also created legal guides. These were largely created prior to COVID, and these are resources that we can give to Colorado Legal Services clients who we're advising and representing, but we also can give to others because they are legal information. And we do continuously update them, and many are available in English and Spanish. Next slide. This is some of what our funding goes towards. Salaries, benefits based in Adams County Courthouse. So we do have an office at Adams County Courthouse that we use so that clients have confidentiality when we meet with them and draft answers when the courthouse is open. We have space at the Irving Street Library. We can meet with tenants so that they don't have to come all the way down to our office in Denver, but can still have a private and confidential space to meet with us. And then we also have various resources so that we can serve clients effectively. Next slide. We believe that hopefully the court will return to how it was previously in the future, and that we will be able to return to the pre-COVID processes we had in place. But until then, we will continue to serve as we are. We do hope the modifications that will be made are that municipalities and landlords will be more open to working together to prevent homelessness and allow tenants to remain in their home, because we have seen a change in that during COVID. And this pilot program allows us to continue to serve families facing eviction, to provide them more time, to provide them information, to empower them to make better decisions during this time, and to apply for resources that they may need. We're very grateful for your funding in this, and we hope that you will continue to fund the project. Thank you. And now I can take questions.
Councilmember Duran-Mullica.
Sure, I'll kick it off. So I think it's a very impressive program. It looks like you guys have been able to do a lot of great work, which I really appreciate. And so it's a great summary. Thank you for providing that. The only question I do have is, so you're looking at extending this. I know that 2021 is probably still going to be a COVID issue still happening, but moving forward, can landlords still seek help on behalf of their renters? So for example, if somebody, one of their renters needs help, they could help them get it through your services. Is that going to still be an option for folks?
So prior to COVID, there were resources available for rental assistance, almost home provided resources for tenants, including rental assistance, as well as Brothers and other agencies in Adams County. Right now, Maker provides significant rental assistance. Tenants can also apply through the Department of Local Affairs, and landlords can apply through the POP program. Colorado Legal Services is committing to staying afloat of available resources and helping tenants apply for those resources. I hope that we continue to have a direct stream of rental assistance available to our tenants. It has been so beneficial to Adams County tenants to have us be able to gather all the paperwork. A lot of tenants are frustrated. They need everything from ID to their lease to a ledger, and having us be able to communicate with their landlord or their landlord's attorney and gather that has expedited the process, as well as the guarantee that it will be provided within 21 days. I hope that the municipalities in Maker continue to fund us in that program, and we would love to continue to work on it, but I don't know if that funding will continue to be available, but I do hope that we can continue the partnerships that we have created during this time.
Okay, I think that's fair. Thanks.
Councilmember Goff.
Thank you. I noticed in the paperwork, the memorandum, I guess, that we got here, that it looks like we're asking for $24,000 for 2 years, and that we've already got half of that budgeted for next year. So I guess what I'm wondering is, if we go for the $24,000, we say we want to support this for 2 years, and the $24,000 that you're asking for, is the city expected to be paying this $24,000 like right now, or is it half of it this year and half of it next year?
This is John again, Councilwoman. No, we will send you an invoice in December or early January for the 2021 grant. We will do that again in late 2021 for the 2022 funding. We have done that consistently with all of our 9 partners. Some of the partners paid a little late this year given COVID, but they all have paid their commitment. What we want, though, particularly in the initial pilot, I mean, if you hire a lawyer, if you start taking cases, they don't end on December 31st. And we wanted a commitment of at least 2 years to make sure we could get it up and running and see the results of it. And then if absolutely necessary, start to phase it down. But starting with the support both of Adams County and Westminster in late summer, it seemed like there was an interest in continuing it for at least another 2 years. And that gives us some level of stability without really making the front end costs for any of the partners excessive.
Okay, thank you. So I also seem to understand that the $12,000 for 2021 has already been included in the budget. So the commitment we're making would be for 2022. And maybe this is a question for Heather, but
yeah.
That's correct. But ultimately, and Cody, you can speak to this, because Northglenn wasn't a party, technically speaking, to the initial IGA. There is an effort moving forward to update or renew the IGA. So we would be making a 2-year commitment, but we do have the $12,000 for funding for 2021.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just wanted clarification on that.
And I don't know if it would help or not. I'm Cody Blue Urban with the City of Westminster, and am organizing on behalf of the partners the commitments from each city previously in 2018, and then as well currently. And we have commitments matching for all of the cities who previously participated, but there's 2 I'm just waiting on to make sure that they're still interested. That's Aurora and Commerce City, and it's just a communication piece right now. It's looking at this point that everybody's joining back in at the same level, and we're working on a new IGA. Will be very similar to the previous one, but will include Northglenn.
Mayor Pro Tem
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Did you want to finish your thought?
Well, I just wanted to say that the costs, given increase in salary and some other incidentals, may well go up in 2021 and 2022, but CLS is committed to absorb any additional cost, and we're only asking the partners to renew their 2018 to 2020 commitment.
Thank you,
It's a
Mr.
terrific project, and we're invested in its success now as much as the partners.
Thank you for that. I don't know if this was planned or not to have the conversation with our Adams County folks and homelessness, and then to talk about another effort to keep folks housed. But it was perfectly planned. And I just want to say I am just tremendously impressed with the work that this pilot has been able to accomplish, in particular for our Northglenn residents. And I fully support a 2-year commitment. So thanks for all that you'll do.
And maybe you might know that this effort really started with Cody, with the city attorney in Westminster, David Frankel, with Don Tripp, the city manager, Steve Odoricio, the Commissioner Pinter. It was a number of people recognizing an acute problem of tenants in Adams County pre-pandemic facing the threat of eviction and coming together through the IGA to make the work possible. Heather and I struggled about whether to develop a separate agreement, and ultimately we did a 1.5-page letter, and we said we would treat Northglenn just as if it was a signatory on the IGA. Hopefully, you will now become a formal signatory, but we made it work anyhow, and I appreciated Heather's flexibility and willingness to let me play like a lawyer for a while, and then we gave up and a letter was fine.
Any other
But
questions?
Cody, then Mayor, may I just say one last thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I have now for just under 50 years been a member of the Colorado and Denver Bar Association. And just last week, I do not know Councilman Randall Peterson, but about a week ago, I had the pleasure of reading a piece that he had published in the Denver Docket. It was on statesmanship, but really I thought it was a personal statement of values, and I found it very personally and professionally moving. And I would think that if the other members, mayor and the council, have not seen that piece, I would ask that he make it available. And if he won't, I'll get it to Heather to share with all of you. It is about the ups and downs of life, but more importantly about the value of statesmanship and the responsibility to the public over position. It was well written. I thought it was very, very moving.
Well, I would love to read it, so maybe we can convince him to share it with us directly.
Well, we'll have to talk about that, but Counselor, that is very, very kind of you, and I appreciate that very much. And it's kind of a call for our times to, look to the better angels of our nature. And so I truly, truly appreciate your kind words and your compliments, sir. Thank you. That means the world to me.
Thank you.
Okay, so what do we need to move forward? I think we have enough information. Heather, do you need something else from us?
No, Mayor, I believe I have consensus to move forward. So next steps will work with Cody, and city attorneys will bring forward an IGA, and council's made a ongoing commitment for another 2 years.
Excellent. Thanks. Well, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Lizzie. Thank you, Council and Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving into our third item, 2021 Waste Optimization Study. We're definitely turning a corner on topics. We're talking about solid waste management in Colorado. Thank you, Brooke, for being here for this. So it looks like we have a couple of guests. So planning staff and the consultant, Lori. Oh, could you say your last name for me?
How about Bachelor Adams? But Lori works.
Lori it is. Of LBA Associates will present the information to council. So I have your presentation and I will pull it up. Brooke, do you have any opening statements?
I'm going to defer to Becky and she's going to introduce this item for council tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brooke. And really tonight, I just wanted to introduce the newest member of our staff in the planning division, which is Ashley McFarland. She started at the end of January, so she has been with us a while, but many of you may not have gotten a chance to meet her since we moved into COVID shortly after she started. But she's been essential to the planning staff for several projects that we're working on, including working to implement our sustainability plan goals, including waste diversion. And so she and Rob Weber are co-managing this project. And so I will turn it over to her to introduce the project as well as our consultant, Lori.
Perfect. Thank you, Becky. And thank you again, Mayor and City Council. We are so excited to be here and to introduce this project to you all. As Becky stated, I am the co-manager for this project, and my counterpart is Rob Weber. So Rob, if you want to say hi.
Hello, everyone. I'm the operations manager for the city, and that's all I have to say right now.
And you may hear from him and myself during this presentation. We would like this presentation to be more of a conversation. So if you do have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or shout them out as we go along here. Can I go ahead and get the next slide, please? Thank you. Just a quick introduction of the project. So the City of Northglenn has entered into a contract with LBA Associates to complete the 2020-2021 Waste Optimization Study. And LBA Associates is led by Lori Batchelder Adams, and she is here today. Lori, if you want to say hi.
Hi, folks.
So our goal for this study is to understand current and future citywide residential curbside pickup. This study aims to understand what options exist for expanding current residential city waste services. And in addition to residential benefits, the city would like to explore waste optimization and landfill diversion options that prioritize specifically cost savings and environmental benefits. Moving to the budget, this project's contract amount, I'll stop there. The project's contract amount is for $47,800, and the funds will come from the Sanitation Enterprise Fund. The city originally had budgeted $25,000 for a recycling study and $25,000 additional dollars for a composting study. However, staff decided that they would like to combine it into one study, and that's what we're getting here, the waste optimization study. So at this time, I would like to just go ahead and send it over to Lori. She will be presenting an overview of solid waste management, including details specifically about Northglenn solid waste management services, and then finally concluding with public talking points that you all can take with you and utilize as this project continues over the next 9 to 10 months. So Lori, go ahead and send it over to you.
Thank you, Ashley. And thanks, everybody. You have quite the agenda, and getting together on a Monday night to talk about garbage on top of everything else, I'm impressed and glad to be here. This is a good project. You have great staff, and I am always happy to be able to talk to elected officials who care enough to hear about a project as it's developing. This project, of course, is in its early stages. We haven't done all of our analysis, but we're trying to queue it up and make good assumptions for getting started. So we not only want to tell you about the project, but we wanted to take the advantage of the time to give you some background and get you prepped for the conversation that will come, and give you information so that if you do have an opportunity to interact with your constituents or others, you have the information to understand facts versus fiction and kind of have the background going forward. I've done this for 30 years with Colorado governments, and I found, without a doubt, those elected officials who will take the time have more successful programs than those who don't. So thank you for your interest and your time. So with that, let's just jump right in. I'm going to admit that I put these slides together a little over a month ago. I think we've delayed our presentation time, and Ashley tells me that communication staff have done a little formatting. So there's a couple things that are new to me here, but we may skip a slide or two. We'll see how it goes. But Ashley, we can jump right into the first slide. What I'd like to do with your indulgence is talk a little bit about the industry, kind of 10,000 foot level, get us on the same page. And then what I'd like to do is spend a few slides talking about the concept of pay-as-you-throw, volume-based trash pricing, a little bit about single stream recycling and the corner it may have backed us into, and then also about possibly adding new compost collection to the city of Northglenn. And that will allow us to kind of pull everything together, I believe, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions if you have any. So the solid waste industry, garbage should be so darn simple. I mean, what is there to it? We put it in a bag, we stick it on the curb, it disappears. But of course, like anything else, when you delve into it, the solid waste industry and all the components make it very complicated. And my job tonight is to try to present the information with some clarity and not muck it up even more so. But the fact of the matter is solid waste is so much more than the residential waste stream that the city of Northglenn is currently managing. And it's important to understand that because we need to bite off a chunk that we can chew and do a really good job with it. But as we all realize, we have to do more landfill diversion. We have to be cognitive of, aware of what we can control. So the residential piece that you guys work with is a small piece, an important piece, and a good starting point, but it's just part of a much bigger puzzle, if you will. On top of that, we tend to be very data poor in our industry, and we're always making a lot of assumptions. Luckily, we have some information about the Front Range of Colorado. CDPHE has been pretty good about pulling it together. The sad thing is the data isn't very positive. It turns out that over half of what we collectively, you, me, at home, at work, industry, what we send to the landfill, 50% of it could have been reused, repurposed, recycled, or composted. So it's a bit sobering to realize we're wasting at that level. On the flip side, when we recycle, we've gotten to the point where at least 15%, and I've seen numbers over 30, of the recycle stream is actually trash. So the efficiency and the cost there don't really help us either. Let's move on, Ashley. Thanks for doing the slides, by the way. In terms of the industry, don't want to spend a lot of time on this. You can follow the lovely green boxes from the overall solid waste generation universe, if you will, all the way down to the single family units, the SFUs, that the city's sanitation division serves. So there's a lot more to solid waste on the right side of the chart if we're not even talking about municipal. That's where we have any industry and manufacturing waste, where we have all our construction. So when we're in a building boom, the economy is good, that half of the slide is way more than half of our waste stream. If we move over to the municipal side, you can see it's divided between our offices, our grocery stores, our schools, and our libraries, which we're not touching in this project either. In fact, we're not dealing with even the entire residential stream because Northglenn, of course, has 9,200 or so single family units that you serve directly. And there are some 4,800 multifamily units that are not served directly by Rob's crew. So the control that you have at this point is a small piece. And you guys have a great group of services that you provide there, but it's something you want to be aware of and maybe look to expanding in the future. You can conquer the rest of the world tomorrow when we get this project done and well implemented. So let's move on, Ashley. I just want to give a little more substance to the stats I shared. Front Range, Colorado, this is municipal solid waste, so commercial and residential. Overall, the state tells us that we landfill 84% of what we generate. all of us. It's an astoundingly large number. Of that lovely brown slice of the pie, you move to the right, and the ring diagram is a breakdown of what's in our trash. And here's where you can see 22% we could have put in our single stream recycling bin. 26% were organics that we could have composted, and another 11% could have been diverted as other materials. So lots of opportunity to do more, and Northglenn is in this range and represented by the averages as well. Becky? So I think it's always helpful to take just a minute and pull back and do a quick refresher on what the city is doing at the moment. And I know you folks oversee this, you for the most part know it fairly well, but here's just some quick reminders of your customer service base and the services provided. So I think I said 9,200 SFUs a minute ago, 9,400 is the real number. And the sanitation division provides some regular curbside services that I'm sure you all take advantage of. First of all, trash is provided to every single one of these units on a weekly basis. Recycling is also available to everyone, but it's not a mandatory automatic service. It's optional. Folks can take advantage or not. And in fact, about 84% of your customer base have said, yeah, give me a recycling card and I will recycle at least some of the time. What's interesting, though, is that the trash service that's available comes in two sizes. It comes in a 64-gallon cart, which we'll call medium, and a 96-gallon cart, which is a large. Almost everybody says, give me the large. In fact, give me 2 of the large, or maybe 3 of the large. Because guess what? There's a flat price. I only pay $16 a month, no matter how much I trash. So I'm smart. Give me all of it. At the same time, I can have recycling, but I don't have to do it. So I think that's important, just the way it's structured, because one of the primary focuses of this optimization study is not only to improve the effectiveness of services provided at a fair price, but to really focus on diversion. The table at the bottom, you guys can see, I don't need to read it to you. It's the extra services, the non-regular or the periodic services. The one I'd like to point out is the second row. And those are really, I'll just call them the free trash services. So there's a couple of free dumpster days for bulky items. There's a couple of free landfill days that the city offers its customers, include really all residents. And again, the message here is, hey, no extra cost to you folks. If you couldn't fit it in your 3 large trash carts, bring it on down to dumpster days, take it to the landfill, and it will be free. And of course, we know it isn't. But my point is that the system as is kind of does definitely communicate to folks, trash away, pretty much unlimited trash. You won't pay extra, recycle if you want. Nothing wrong with this, but if our focus really is to ratchet up diversion, these are the areas we really want to focus on. Ashley? I think I have just a few more metrics. You can see what's valuable to you here for the existing city service. The biggie is that while the Front Range averages about 16% diversion, Northglenn is at about 12, which is a third of where the country is on average. So room to grow. Always places to beef up. I thought it was helpful to put the gate fees or the tip fees for both the landfills you folks use, the recycling facility you use, and what your organics fee might be if you collected organics. Because I think it's important to fess up and present the good with the bad. Full disclosure, recycling is absolutely more expensive than landfilling these days. I hate to deliver that message. I hope I don't have to do it much longer, but it's the truth of the matter. Right now, you guys are paying about $15 a ton at the landfills, and you're paying $50 and above for recycling. The fact of the matter is we're in a perfect storm in terms of pricing. It's about the worst it's been. It has been for a year or so. It will be for a while longer. The secondary commodity materials market is very global and not really in our control. What we have to do is be ready to move with the fluctuating prices and have really smart programs that protect us as best we can. Our expectation is these prices will come down, the recycling prices. They will never get us back to the days when we made buckets of money from recycling. We could basically say recycling was free. But hopefully our prices will get back closer to landfill tip fees. So full disclosure, that's where we are. I think let's move on from there, Ashley. So what are we going to do in this project? Ashley queued it up. We've talked about it a little bit. There's 4 key points, and staff has spread it over a couple of slides. Probably the biggest task in the core of the project is this first bullet. We're going to look at changing the core curbside services provided to your single family units. What do we mean by that? Well, the first and foremost thing is that we don't want recycling to be optional anymore. We want it to be a core service. We want everyone to get it automatically and to pay for it automatically. So rather than be optional and have a cart, people have the service every 2 weeks. Trash is weekly, recycling every other week. We want to expand the existing city trash service from 2 trash sizes to more than that, to maybe 3 sizes, and really emphasize the volume difference, because guess what? We want to put different pricing with those sizes. So we want to expand the options available, have really clear price signals that encourage people to trash less and recycle more, make trash and recycling a bundled core service. We may go back and look at our extra services and make sure they don't undermine this concept of paying for what you trash. And we might also look at cart ownership. I didn't mention earlier that the flat fee of $16 applies to everyone, but there is the current system is you buy your carts. So the carts are about $60. It's a one-time fee because these puppies last about 10 years. So if you want 3 trash carts, you do have to buy them. But with a pay-as-you-throw system, it probably will be more efficient for the city to maintain ownership. So that would be a switch, and we'll take a look at that as well. The bottom bullet is relatively a small task, but an important one. We need our recyclable stream to have some quality to it. We need to have good quality materials and get the trash out, not only because it needs to have value when we sell it, but it costs us less to process. Single stream is great, but somebody has to sort it eventually, and we don't want to be dealing with trash at our recycling facilities. Let's go to the next slide. And the second biggest task we have in this project is to look at organics collection. The city would like to look at the feasibility of curbside collection of organics. We're not Boulder, and Boulder and maybe Aspen are a couple of the communities in Colorado where making organics a core service to every household, may fly at some point, and it might in Northglenn someday. But at this point in time, folks generally don't accept organics as a service I must have and I'm willing to pay for. Recycling, yes, but we aren't generally there for organics. So our feeling is the feasibility of making it a core service to all 9,400 homes is not the way to go. Instead, we're going to look at a subscription program that's voluntary. So in other words, folks would say, you know what, I have a lot of food waste, I have a lot of yard waste, I have room for an extra cart, sign me up, I'll pay an extra fee. So we're going to look at what that would look like. There's an economy of scale involved there. So we're going to look, I believe, at 3 price points, 3 costs per household month, and then see what kind of participation we need to have to make that a cost neutral program for the city. So that's what we're going to look at there. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at the efficacy and the cost effectiveness of your drop site collections, which I know is not exactly the term you guys use. I'm referring to the yard waste you take at maintenance and operations now on some Saturdays, depending on the season, as well as your 2 recycling drop sites. I understand these are pretty much, the recycling at least, are 24/7, pretty much unstaffed operation that take a lot of materials from pretty much anybody. And there might be some ways that we could improve the quality, control users, and maybe just have a more cost-effective operation, perhaps even accept more materials. And I'm thinking of organics there. So a couple of thoughts, that's where we're going. With your permission, I guess I'd like to talk for a few slides about pay-as-you-throw, and then we'll talk about single stream and composting and open it up. So Ashley? It's really hard to tell in a slide presentation like this because I've only got about 4 or 5 faces on my screen. I'd like to ask if most of you on the council and others joining and Mayor, whether you're familiar with this concept of pay-as-you-throw, volume-based trash pricing. I'm not sure if you all are. The heads I see are not nodding. In fact, wake up, people. So let's just talk a little bit about this concept, because if you don't know, it's important. I see a couple heads there. I've lost my slides, Ashley.
So here's part of the problem is I'm driving the slides. So every time you say Ashley, I'm not Ashley. So I keep forgetting.
Thank you, Mayor.
So I apologize. I was like, who's Ashley? And then I'm sorry, I know who Ashley is, but I was not registering. So your slides were delayed just because that's not my name. So I will put them back up for you. I just wasn't sure, since you took the time to pause, if anybody had a question about what we've covered so far. Okay, now we'll go back.
Thank you.
There you go.
So I think we're going to talk about pay as you throw. So this is a concept that is not new. So Northglenn wouldn't be breaking any new ground. Upwards of well over 7,500 communities in the U.S. use pay as you throw to provide trash service and to price their services. And we in the industry have accepted this as pretty much the most successful mechanism to increase residential recycling. So we're pretty confident about it. It's also very common in Colorado. The whole point here is it creates an incentive to trash less and recycle more, as I've said before. And a couple of the cool things about pay as you throw is it treats trash service as really as any other utility. In other words, the more you use it, the more you pay. You have a lot of trash, you pay more. You have less trash, you pay less. It will also give your customers options for controlling their own costs. If they can figure out how to generate less and or recycle more actively, they can reduce their costs. It's not all, roses and birdsong, however. Pay as you throw is definitely more complex than what you're doing now. As you guessed, we're going to have more service levels. We're going to have more carts of different sizes. The pricing is going to be tiered. So it's going to be a little bit more work to get the public to understand it, for the city to gear up to provide it. Doable, however, as we've seen in many cases. The other point is that if we're encouraging people to recycle more, we just talked about how recycling is more expensive than landfilling. So we have to figure out where else we have efficiencies and be creative in how we price this, and also make no secret of the fact that recycling costs more. Let's go on a little bit. Next slide, Mayor Lady, please. And this slide doesn't do much for me as it's reorganized, so I'd say let's skip this one and go right to the next table. Pay as you throw can have as many options as you guys all have fingers and toes. I've done a table here that's a hypothetical example of the most common way pay as you throw is rolled out and what we will be looking at for Northglenn. So sizing our trash service is the core of this. So if you look at the first column under trash cart, this is where I'd like to start. Let's look at option 3 first, the large service size. That's very typically 96-gallon carts, exactly where most of Northglenn is right now. So you guys are well underway. Option 2, medium, is often a 64-gallon cart, and that's the other service size that Northglenn provides. We'd also like to see a third level to give people more options. So option 1 would be a smaller container. We don't know yet exactly what that would be. In my hypothetical situation, I would make it 32 gallons though. So that if I had my small 32, my medium 64, I've just increased by 100%. And my large at 96 is now 2 times the volume of my 1. What I like about that is I've got a nice clean 1X, 2X, 3X, or 100% volume differential. In this table, I put a super saver option at the top. You've got some communities around you that say, hey, we want to even have a smaller one. So we'll take that small cart and we'll make it available every other week if people really don't have much trash. That's great to have. I've just kind of thrown it in there so you guys might have heard of it and you can see it. It's an option. The next part of pay as you throw is we always provide recycling service in a bundled approach. And really, these cart sizes that you see in the middle should be medium to large, not small to medium. In fact, they're typically large. We want everybody to have a large, no matter what size their trash is. We want them to recycle as much as they can. So then the tricky part is, how the heck do we price all of this? We've got to figure out what recycling costs, what trash cart costs, and then establish our pricing. We want really clear pricing differentials, just like we had volume differentials, because we want to send signals to folks. It's more expensive to have that large service. So if we estimate that our medium service cost, our medium trash and our large recycling, say, is $20 a month for every household, then one size down would be 10 and one size up would be 30 in a 1X, 2X, 3X, or 100% pricing differential scenario. Not that this is exactly how it will work out, but this is what we're shooting for because we've learned from all the other communities that this differential just gives us the best result. There are many communities out there that don't use 100%, they use a lower number. Research that's been done in Colorado shows that we don't really want to go much lower than an 80% increase as we get bigger and bigger, or we don't get the same results. That said, there are no apples to apples. Everybody does it different. Your partner in crime, as far as solid waste goes, Thornton, does something completely different. They don't have multiple sizes. They have only 96-gallon carts. You can have multiple of them, and you have to pay a little bit more for each one. The problem is their differential is tiny. It's about 20%, and it really doesn't have an impact on people. And we know this because their diversion rate is pretty low. Doesn't give the results. So there are different ways of doing it. You just have to balance your outcome with what you come up with. So in a hypothetical, this is what pay-as-you-throw looks like. And my best guess is that we will come back with a recommendation for Northglenn that will look similar to this. We'll spend a lot of time on the cost analysis part. Next slide, please. Yeah, time for just a little bit of levity. My suggestion is here, you use rigid carts, not flexible bags. And we can move on. Pay-as-you-throw has its issues. I've mentioned complexities. Nobody wants to make changes in what they've got already. They don't want to have to get smart enough to make a new service level suggestion. And there's lots of ways to go about this. I'd recommend that if Northglenn rolls this out, they pick a default service level and people don't say, hey, give me the small, give me the large. You've got a default you can assign to every address, every customer. You could also have maybe not opt-outs as we've got here, but at least temporary waivers. If people have real issues with space, they don't generate a lot of recyclables, they simply can't afford it, they could perhaps get a temporary waiver, have that kind of process. Costs are going to change. I can't tell you how much lower or even higher than $16 a month they will be yet at these various levels. As I said, people who trash less, recycle more may well see their monthly costs go down, but the opposite is also true. So there are a number of things we can put in place here. It's ideal, it will be ideal if the city continues to offer extra trash collections as they do now for, I think it's $10 a pop. Having that sort of backup is great. Maybe adjustments to the free trash services so we don't kind of crash with our pay-as-you-throw. There's sorts of things we will look at. We don't expect, at least relatively speaking, that implementing pay-as-you-throw will be a terrific cost investment for the city. Rob and his crew already have trucks, they have drivers, they've got routes laid out, 84% of the folks that already have a recycling cart. So it'll be more of the public education to get people up to speed, getting them to pick a service level and rolling out those extra carts and doing the deployment there. That's the biggie I would mention. If we could move on, I think we can talk about single stream at this point. Thank you. Single stream, you're probably saying, I know what that is. I do that now. We've been doing that forever. The problem is that it's not perfect either. Single stream has been great because it's so convenient for us at home. One big cart, we can put everything in it. Haulers love it. It's so much less expensive to pick up than multiple bins at every household. The problem is that we now know we have a lot higher contamination in our single stream. It's just easier to put extra stuff in there, hoping somebody will figure out how to recycle it. And that processing costs a lot more, as we've already mentioned. But there are ways to get around that, both for curbside and drop site programs, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Let's move on to the next slide and talk a little bit about some of the single stream issues. We'll be really quick about this one. I've already mentioned kind of the wish cycling. I got this plastic thing and it's not really on my acceptable list, but I bet if I put it in there, they'll figure out how to recycle it. Instead, it ends up being trash and costing more money to manage. The recycling markets are crazy. We have been sending our single stream with all our contaminants, mostly to international markets for years, and they finally said enough. They stopped taking our materials. So we're in a lull now while we're waiting for domestic mills and other markets to gear up and be ready here in the United States to take our materials. And in the meantime, we're spending a fortune on our recycling. The hope is that price will come down as we get domestic markets going, and we'll report that as soon as we know it, but that's where we are. And we can move on again. As far as Northglenn specifically is concerned, Rob reports that your recyclables contamination, and I believe this is both curbside and drop site, right, Rob, is about 15%. I think you hear that from waste management.
That's correct.
Okay. So if we consider that 15% of your recyclable stream is actually trash, the reality is you aren't diverting 12%, you're diverting closer to 10%. So again, that's tough to hear considering all the effort that you go to and the money you spend. So let's fix that. Lots of ways to do it. We can work on that with public education and lots of good staff time and other mechanisms curbside. And we also can tackle the drop sites and get I suspect a lot of your contamination might be coming from your 2 recycling drop sites if they're overused. We could work on that a number of ways, including many of the things on this slide, and that'll be part of what we will undertake. Also had a chance to look at your recycling contract with Waste Management. I think there's room to improve some of your costs there and get them more involved in helping you get the public message out. That said, let's move on to the subscription curbside issues and program that we might be looking at. Again, we're looking at voluntary program that folks understand, want to participate in, and take on at an extra cost. We want the cream of the crop here, and that's really what happens when you have a subscription program. People really are interested in doing it, and they do a good job. In fact, the likely processor for any Northglenn organics will be a company called A1 Organics. They're up in Keensburg, and they really are opposed to making organics collection composting a core service that everybody gets because the contamination is so high. You can imagine if somebody doesn't want to separate the organics, they're going to use that green bin for anything else. So subscription program really helps in terms of quality. The problem is we want that crop to be big because the more participation, the better our costs will be, economy of scale, right? And we're also going to talk about how drop site collection, similar to what you're doing for yard waste at the maintenance and operation facility, can either supplement the curbside program or replace it if you don't decide to take that option on. So let's move on. Voluntary option is a pro. You know, folks who want to do it will do it if they've got room for a cart and willing to pay the service. In fact, if a household diverts their food and yard waste, they may be able to reduce down to a smaller trash service level, reduce that cost, and come out closer to a wash. Organics diversion is the best way we have to really take a chunk out of diversion because nearly a quarter of what we send to the trash is food and yard waste. So if we find a way to divert that more successfully from the Northglenn residential waste stream, we have a chance of really jumping up the diversion number. Next slide, please. And this is the last one on compost also. Again, in the interest of full disclosure and preparing you for perhaps some opposing comments, you don't have compost collection now. If you add it, guess what? A new route with another vehicle and another driver, which means you're going to be out on the road burning more fuel, greenhouse gases, and creating, albeit minor, but road impacts. I mean, you have another heavy vehicle out there. The expectation isn't that you will have 5 more trucks out there a day. You will probably have a route every other day or so. This will most likely be an every other week collection. But still, there are impacts with any route, any collection route. We hope it'll be offset largely by less trash. And you may hear about this from some of the opponents. The other notable thing about compost processing is it is very difficult to site new facilities. And if we're very, very lucky, fingers crossed, Boulder County will have a new facility about 20 miles away, just about 5 miles north of Erie in the old Rainbow Nursery site. If the county is successful in building that facility, they won't bring it online until about 2022. It's a big question mark, but yet that timing could be good for Northglenn. The alternative is going to A1 Organics facility about 40 miles out, and that transfer cost will be yet another consideration. So those are the biggies for compost. I'd like to just go to Fantasyland for a minute on the next slide, if we could, and mention that there will be life after this project. I don't want to spend much time on it, but I do want to just note that there's a lot of precedent in Colorado for communities who put policies in place and say, you know what, we are not controlling collection of trash and recycling from multifamily units, from commercial businesses, from industry or construction sites, but we can say, private haulers, you're more than welcome to operate in our community as long as you're licensed and maybe you tell us every year how many tons you move. and you provide recycling to all your trash customers at some minimal level. So in other words, setting some minimum standards for other haulers operating in other sectors you don't control. Recyclables, as we've talked about, we can't really control what those costs are going to be from a global marketplace. We have to just have good programs and be ready to go with the flow there and be tracking the impact on a regular basis. Organics markets, however, is something that local governments can play a big role in. If you require that compost products that come from our processing facility are used in government operations, perhaps in new developments, in your parks, all of that sort of thing. What we need to do is, those facilities are fairly local. We need to demand the end products so we can drop their tip fees and make your costs for collecting materials less. Latest trends in Colorado. The only thing I want to say here that it is more important all the time is more communities do more good solid waste programming and diversion program to be talking. This apples to oranges to avocados is really tough. We're not consistent. We don't have overlap. We have different programs. We collect different materials. Our messages are different. There's no sharing of information. There's no efficiency back and forth, and it's confusing to folks who live in one community and work in another. So we need to be talking more, and I know Rob is part of a group that does that now, but consistency to the extent we can get it is important. And Ashley and Rob were smart enough to ask us to do some benchmarking about other communities in Colorado so they can do just that. So I think that's important to be watching for. If we could have the next slide, I believe that's the first two slides on talking points. And Ashley and Becky asked me to be prepared to leave you with some talking points that you could have in your back pocket for when a member of the public or staff had a question for you or were confused or frustrated by this study. These slides are great. I think Ashley is going to give you a handout at the end of the study session, right? So you can ignore these slides. The handout's better. It's a one-pager. It has items laid out maybe with a little more detail that you don't have to read. You just have and use as a tool when you need it. But what we wanted to do with the handout is tie into this information on the slide some early survey results. The planning department has done a great public survey on solid waste. The results are starting to come in. And important things to know is that 99% of the respondents think landfill diversion is extremely important and want access to more programs. 84% of them already have a recycling cart, although a lot of them trash as much as they possibly can, which probably explains the low diversion rate. So how do we make it easier for them? How do we give them incentives? Pay as you throw is a key option. We explained this program. We didn't use PAYT in our survey, but we described the concept, and 89% of the respondents supported this kind of change. So that sounds promising. Voluntary composting is also key, and improving the efficacy of the drop sites. We also added on our handouts one point about money. And our point was that, as you guys know well, nothing is free. There is no service that the city offers now that is truly free, right? Residents pay for it either through part of their $16 a month on their utility fee, or they're paying for it in property taxes, and it's coming through the general fund. It's important that we convince people and are clear that recycling isn't free, even though we may bundle it. We want to talk about these free landfill days and free dumpster days. They aren't free, and maybe we want to think about that a little bit in terms of getting people to trash less. And lastly, I wanted to point out public education. You guys have some good materials on your website, and I know your staff are well educated and communicate well with the public, but if you're going to roll out a new program like Pay As You Throw, a good investment in public outreach materials and staff availability will be critical in the short term. And that won't be free either. And all of those costs are part of what we will evaluate and wrap into the pricing so that you've got your costs covered, and all of it is considered in the results when we come up with them late next year. I'm going to stop there and take questions. The only other thing is Ashley's got an attachment 2 in there, and that is an old table I developed in 2018. I was working with a client who wanted to go from an open system of multiple haulers to a single hauler contract, and they said, Lori, give me a feel for how well landfill diversion is tied to these pay-as-you-throw programs. And you can do that. You can use as much of this or none of it as you want. But if you look on the far right, you can see some pretty high residential diversion rates. And then you go backwards and you look at the pay-as-you-throw programs, and almost all of them are pay-as-you-throw, 3 or 4 more trash options and 100% pricing differential. So again, we're not Boulder, but you can see where things work and what some of our options are. So enough from me. I'm glad to take questions.
Awesome. Councilmember Goff?
Thank you. I have a couple of things I'd like to say or ask about as well. I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about the plastics and recycling, because it seems to me from what I've been able to read that plastic, anything that's labeled as a recyclable plastic, in the best case scenario can only be recycled 3 times. Because every time they recycle something that's made out of plastic, the plastic deteriorates and it'll get to the point where it can no longer be recycled. So I think whatever we do, we need some kind of education or option that makes it really clear to our residents to buy less plastic. Because, you know, I would honestly, from what I've been reading and hearing, I think that we should recycle everything except plastic, because it's so much of that, it's just a waste of the resources it takes to recycle it. And you can only do it a couple of times and then it ends up in the landfill eventually anyway. So that's just my little soapbox thing. But I would say that the plastics to me is, I think that's where we get a lot of this contamination, because so many food products, drinks and whatnot come in plastic. And if then the people don't like wash it out, or there's that whole thing. Personally, myself, you have all these bottles with the different colored plastic cap. And I know you're supposed to take the cap off and the cap can't be recycled, but what about the little plastic ring? Are you supposed to pry that off? I mean, you know, I just have a lot of questions. I think plastics are very complicated and very, very wasteful. And whatever we do, whether or not we decide not to recycle plastic or we do, that I really think there needs to be a heavy emphasis on how wasteful plastic materials are and how much of that ends up in a landfill, no matter what you try to do. And I remember sorting recyclables, in my household. I lived in Denver for many years, and when recycling first started, that's what you did, So, and I don't even know if we recycled plastic stuff back then. It was paper, cardboard, cans, glass, that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's impossible to do that. And when we were really desperately trying to encourage people to recycle because, that was a source of revenue. I mean, the single stream recycling makes a lot of sense. But where we are right now, when we're making it so easy for people, and the examples you gave of how I call it aspirational recycling. But you think, you're hoping that this thing you're not sure about will be recycled, and you throw it in there. That could contaminate that whole batch of recyclables, and then it ends up in a landfill anyway. So anyway, I think we could seriously, either with education or whatnot, but we might consider asking residents to either sort their recycling or recycle less. I think the composting is a great idea because, as you pointed out, that's a huge percentage of what does end up in landfills. And I know that, I know people, I'm not going to mention any names, but I know people who put yard waste in their trash cans because that's just, the easiest thing to do. It's too heavy, or they don't know where to take it, or they don't have a vehicle to take it to, some place that can make use of it. So if we can figure out a way to solve that problem, the yard waste, the bushes, branches, even, old sod, weeds, whatever, I think that a lot of that does end up in our trash cans. And that might be why people have the biggest number of trash cans, because every spring and every fall, they're doing that yard work and they need the biggest containers. That might be the only time of the year they use all their containers. And then the other question, those are all comments, I'm sorry, but I do have one question. That was
good ones.
How many respondents did we actually get to this survey that you're mentioning? Do you have a number, or?
The last I looked, it was over 160.
Okay, and we're still getting those coming in.
That's correct. It'll be going through, I believe, December 15th.
And does that, how does that compare to other kinds of surveys we've done? Is that like an average number of respondents? I mean, are we looking at, I guess I'm just trying to figure out how effective or how accurate maybe the survey would be.
I might defer that question over to Brooke or Becky.
I would say that that's at this point, that's a pretty high response rate that we've gotten so far, and we're using SurveyMonkey. So I think part of it is just that with working with communications, we're getting better responses. But I would say that in this, especially in this period in time, like for planning projects, especially as something as dare I say, as dry as trash. That to get the kind of participation rate in a survey like that would seemingly seem very encouraging to me, because like when we did the Civic Campus Master Plan, I mean, we begged, borrowed, steal to advertise the heck out of it, put flyers in the utility bills, everything else. And I think we had like 80 people, 90 people show up. And ironically, when we were working with MIG at the time, they were doing and they did an advertisement to 250,000 people, and they had 70 people show up, and the planning staff was ecstatic and had that kind of turnout. And we were like, we had more turnout and we're Northglenn for master plan. So I think it's encouraging, and I think as we progress, we'll probably get more feedback.
I do think there's a lot of interest and concern and really even more information out there now, especially about recycling. And the landfill issues and environmental issues. So I think that this, it might be dry to some, but I do think that a lot of people see it as having a big impact, something that each and every one of us can do to improve, our environment and the quality of life. Thank you. That's it for me.
If I may, I just would like to pop in here since we are talking about the survey. Lori was unable to look at the written answers, and I did go through some of those in the SurveyMonkey, and there was two main themes that came out of it. One of them was how people had too much recycling and not enough bin size for the recyclables that they had. And then the second was everyone really wanted education about composting. So I think that's encouraging as well, just to look at that interest in composting. It is widespread.
Any other questions or comments? So can you remind me, what are the next steps? Where are we headed with this?
I was just going to tee that up. I was going to ask Ashley and Rob to maybe talk about what this is really just to tee it off to introduce this project to the council. But if Ashley and Rob could just kind of jump in and kind of talk about what the process looks like and when we might be back before the council to revisit the sort of the findings that were discussed today.
So I guess I might hand it off to Lori. So as Lori kind of mentioned, we are doing a comparable communities analysis, and that is already done. And then we're moving into the next steps. So Rob or Lori will want to.
I'll just add something real quick. Is just that this is really just, as Brooke said, the kickoff. And so we're really just trying to understand what is out there for us to really engage in, to really make a big dent in what we're trying to do. And so we really need to prioritize what we're doing to make sure that we have the resources once we do kick something off. And if we go down the road of either compost or additional recycling or pay to throw, we want to make sure we have the resources to be able to do it and be successful at it. The last thing we want to do is not have the resources to be able to effectively implement whatever we decide to do. So I would caution us not to, I like to use the term eat the elephant. There's a lot of stuff for us to do, but I think we need to take our time and make sure that we're looking at this in a logical way that we can actually implement in Northglenn and be successful at it. And then I would just turn it over to Lori and let her talk about next steps from her perspective.
Sure. Well, we have a project that will extend till August or so next year, end of second, early third quarter. So we will be starting our deep dive analysis first year. We've just finished benchmarking. We pulled our data together, done our initial analysis, helped get the survey kicked off, and we had a kickoff work session with a number of staff and green volunteers. We expect I've got June, July to have another work session where we actually bring our draft results back to the same group of folks, and I believe even council members who are interested enough to sit around the table or our own tables looking at our computer screens and kind of brainstorm back and forth what we have for interim results. And once we incorporate that information, we'll be doing our final report next summer. So we'll be kind of having our heads down for a while, and we work with Ashley and Rob every couple of weeks, to kind of touch base, but we'll be doing analysis for the next few months. Yay.
Oh.
I would just follow up to Councilwoman Goff's point. We do intend to be looking at the materials that are accepted, recyclables that are accepted to help with the issues you mentioned. Plastics are absolutely the bane of our existence. And as I mentioned, we'll be really stressing the public education pieces of it to kind of come to all of the great points that you made. So thanks for reinforcing the value of doing those things, and we'll make sure we get to them. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Sure. Take care.
All right. Moving into the fourth item on our agenda, we have Diana Wilson, Director of Communications, here with Jenny Murphy, our Community Outreach Coordinator, talking about the 2020 holiday season giving opportunities. So hello.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for having us. I'm sure most of you are really familiar with what we've done in the past as far as holiday giving with the city. We have Christmas Crusade that the PD runs, which is a really big program, helps a lot of families in need in our community. And then Jenny runs a great program where we have bins out around all our facilities. People give donations. Those are provided to not only augment Christmas Crusade, but also support other nonprofits that have Christmas programs. So with COVID, we are running into a few challenges. And the first challenge is our facilities are closed except for the rec center. So hard to get donations and not as many people going out. For Christmas Crusade, there's actually a number of logistical issues. We can't have a bunch of people accumulated together to get gifts, wrap gifts, have a bunch of families come and pick up gifts, all that kind of stuff. We have shift changes to try and keep and people are infected with COVID, so they don't infect a ton of people, right? So for Christmas Crusade, they had to cap it at 10 families per school in Northglenn, and the families need to live in Northglenn because we'll probably be delivering. We can't have families come pick it up. So this has really led us to running into people saying, wow, we're gonna have a lot of families that are still gonna be in need. What are we gonna do? So Jenny and I put our heads together with a lot of other people in the city, kind of trying to figure out what should we do. We know donations are probably going to be down just because people are impacted by COVID, but also donations will be down because people aren't going out. So we decided on the promotion side for donating, we'll also offer an opportunity for people just to give cash, either to the community foundation or to Christmas Crusade. And it still seemed pretty clear that we were going to have a lot of families through Jenny's community contacts, through Jessica Hulse's contacts with families, that there was still going to be a lot of need out there, even with Christmas Crusade continuing to go on and the nonprofits in town, especially since some of our nonprofits aren't going to be able to do the programs that they've done in the past, and those that are doing their programs have the same logistical issues that we are having, right? How do we put stuff together? How do we get it to people? We can't have a bunch of volunteers conjugate. So we're like, what would be the easiest if people are in need? And the answer is gift cards, to be perfectly blunt. And if we are worried about our community and our families in need, we thought we would bring it to you and get your input and just straight up ask, do you want to support more families in our community? Do we want to allocate some dollars to that? We can give the money to the community foundation. They can buy gift cards. And then any families that were in need, we'd have some resources available to support them. The gift cards will probably get in $100 increments if you approve that, and try and use our best judgment as far as if it's a family of 7, probably they need more than $100. If it's a senior, probably $100 would be great. Try and break those up between local Northglenn businesses, so we're also supporting, our community as well. But really, it's just a safety net to make up for the programs that we typically have because of the logistical issues and financial impacts of COVID. So that's what we're bringing to you today. There was one thing in the memo that I wanted to clarify. It kind of sounded like we were going to promote, hey, get gift cards. That's not how this would work. It would totally be a referrals from schools, referrals from Adams County Human Services, referrals through Jessica's program, the outreach she's doing, homelessness referrals, senior hub referrals, our own senior program referrals. So that's who would be eligible for the program. If any of the funds were left over, assuming you agreed with that, we would give it to local nonprofits to distribute to families. And let's see, is there anything else? What we would advertise, like I said earlier, is if people want to donate, giving them the online option so that they are able to still give, even if they're not going out and buying toys at Walmart and dropping them off at their facilities like they usually do. So that's it in a nutshell. You guys have questions?
Councilmember Goff.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you answered this, but I just want to make sure. So we'll have like social media campaigns that will, in that, like on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, there'll be a link to a place that a person can then like donate money just online. Is that the idea you have? Okay.
And we've already been doing that. There's already been a social media post saying, hey, do you want to help families in need? You can give to Christmas Crusade, you can give to the Community Foundation, or you can drop stuff off at our bin at the rec center. So we're promoting that the same way we used to promote just the bins. Now we're having the online links. So we are promoting that to everyone.
And I think the more families we can help, the better. I don't, gift cards are not nearly as exciting as everything all wrapped up, but hey, this is the year we are in. This is 2020. So, I think that's a good idea. The more people we can help, the better.
Councilmember Duran-Malika.
Yeah, can I just clarify? So there's no leftover CARES fund money from the money we set aside for those nonprofit groups. I feel like we did that, and then plus the business money. We don't have any other leftover CARES fund money. Is that correct?
Not have any leftover CARES money. We did a really good job of spending the CARES Act money. Some of the money is being used for this because what you already gave to the Community Foundation, they have already purchased gift cards. So every family that's getting supported by Christmas Crusade will get toys and gifts for the children in that family and a $200 gift card. In addition, Community Foundation is using that money for utility assistance. So that money is already used and allocated. And I should mention, any referrals that we get, we'll check them against what Community Foundation has already given and who's getting stuff from Christmas Crusade so that we aren't doubling up. So when they give the utility assistance, they're also giving a gift card to help out that family to buy groceries or whatever.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to double check that point.
And I just want to clarify one piece. All those funds are committed. So we could be in a position where some of that money comes back to us, but timing wise, I think it's important for council to know everything's committed at this point through sub-recipient agreements and through the OAF process, et cetera. Does that make sense? So if an organization chooses, they're just not able to spend the money, some of that could come back. So I just want that distinction to be clear if money does come back to us.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford.
Thank you. I think I might be a little confused here, so bear with me. So I see in the memo here that if council decides to support the gift card program, that it will cost us $10,000. I assume from the reserves. It says the general budget. But then I'm also hearing that this program is going to happen via the CARES funding we already gave the Northglenn Foundation. I think I'm just confused. Can somebody clarify that for me?
Yeah, let me help clarify. So there's the CARES funding, and some of those funds have already been distributed to the Community Foundation because of the purposes related to COVID-19. This ask, the $10,000 ask, is to come out of the general fund, not reserve, just we have $10,000 available to purchase the gift cards. The nexus that we have to show and demonstrate to prove that a family's been impacted by CARES fund, by COVID, is something we have to show. And so we're recommending using general fund dollars because it's easier, more streamlined way to help our families in need in the community, separated from the COVID piece. Does that help?
Yeah, that's helpful. I appreciate it. I'm really interested in what other council members have to say. Like on the one hand, I'm really supportive of supporting our community, especially during the holiday season. I guess the one heartburn I have is like, is this an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars to support 100 families? Because I can already think of a number of folks that are going to reach out or make a phone call to me and ask me where their gift card is. So I guess I'm kind of on the fence. I'm not totally opposed. I want to hear what other council members have to say. I think it might help me make a better decision. Thanks.
And I do want to reiterate, these are the type of families that the city typically already supports through Christmas Crusade or our donation campaign that Jenny already ran. However, we're just anticipating higher need, fewer community donations because of COVID, and part of it's logistical and part of it's financial. So just trying to fill that gap because it's hard. I'm not in Jenny's shoes and I'm not in Jessica Hulse's shoes. But when you have people that call you that are seriously in need and there's nothing there, and we already gave away Christmas Crusade and Community Foundation already gave away their stuff to their applicants, what are we going to do when nonprofits don't have the resources either? So this was an idea we came up with, but I do totally understand. You're right. It's taxpayer dollars, and is that appropriate use? And that's why we're here asking you.
And also just to chime in a little bit, to let you all know, I've already had many calls from the family liaisons at the elementary and middle schools in Northglenn. So they're kind of waiting to hear also. So they are in touch with many families that aren't currently on the Christmas Crusade list. And we will only take nominations from teachers or counselors or family liaisons, people that truly know that these families are in need.
Jenny, I appreciate you saying that because I agree with Mayor Pro Tem that we need to be thoughtful about how we spend taxpayer dollars. But if you have that type of process, one thing I'm very concerned about is the transition to remote learning for elementary school students has put a lot of our families back into a situation where the adults may not be able to go to work. Yes. So that's something that is really concerning me. So Diana's spot on in that the need is going to be greater and the resources are going to be less. So, but you are right. The people at the schools, like I know exactly in my building who needs this type of support. So I better give Lakewood a call. Councilmember Escobar.
I'm in a very liberal mood this year. $10,000, $100 a family, that's, or would only serve 100 families. And is that enough? Is 100 families?
And I should jump in here. It may not be as many as 100, because if you're a family of 5, $100 gift card to Safeway and $100 gift card to Walmart to get stuff for your kids, then that's really $200. So we're trying to make good judgments based on the need as well and the number of people in the household. So it may not be 100, it might be less. Is it enough? We're totally making a stab in the dark, knowing that there's Crusade, knowing that there's nonprofits, and knowing that the Community Foundation is already doing what they're doing and not wanting to have overlap. We're kind of just guessing. But the money, if you decided to give more, it wouldn't go to waste, because we'll give it to nonprofits in Northglenn if there are any cards left over, and we'll try and balance that between families, homeless, seniors, community reach, the different nonprofits that we already have, places that you guys have already donated CARES Act money to. So, the foster funds program.
See, my thinking more is in line with not necessarily a gift like, I get this package, it's got a bow on it, and I rip it open, and there's a toy inside. I'm thinking more of a gift where people are getting what they really need. Maybe they need prescription medicine, maybe they need food, maybe they need clothing. It's more about need than it is about Christmas giving. But I don't see that $10,000 is enough. And I would advocate for, $15,000 or $20,000. And I understand the taxpayer, the use of taxpayer money. I'm willing to take the flack if the flack comes. I think that we owe it to our community, as particularly as Mayor pointed out in our schools. Everybody's limited in what they can do. And actually, Northglenn's in pretty good shape. Financially, we're in very good shape compared to households who are really struggling, meeting their mortgage payment, putting food on the table, buying gas for their car. I mean, some people are really, really hurting. And what's Christmas about anyway? Sharing what we have in abundance. So I would advocate for more. I'll leave that open for discussion. Thank you.
Antonio, I absolutely love everything about what you just said. It made me wonder if there is a place for an additional, maybe application-based, something that adding to things to do. But if it was something like, maybe I don't have 3 young kids at home, but maybe I'm a senior citizen that can't pay for my prescription. If there was maybe another way we could spread that and have it be maybe an application about this is what I need. I don't know. I think it is the season, right? It is, and so kids love toys. But is there a place for things like the jacket drive and things that are not going to happen this year because of COVID? So I wonder about that. I have quite a few hands, but I saw that Amanda popped on. Do you want to add something really quickly?
I would. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to put on my foundation hat for just a moment and just wanted to share with you that through the CARES Act funding that was already received by the foundation, we'll be serving a total of about 150 families. And it's about 100 through Christmas Crusade, plus 50 through the utility bill assistance. And as Diana mentioned earlier, all of those recipients, whether they received utility bill assistance or not, also received a Safeway gift card for food and other necessities. If you were to ask the foundation to assist with this additional $10,000 in $100 increments, that could certainly be done at Safeway or Walmart, which may allow for some of those other necessities to be purchased as well. And you were mentioning things like winter jackets or prescriptions. Through Walmart, both of those could probably be accomplished.
And if not, you can use your money for your regular groceries, and that should leave you excess out of your other funds to purchase those things that you need. So, kind of that, you use this money instead. So hopefully the reasons we pick Safeway and Walmart is, you're not going to run out and get Air Jordans. Okay. $100 in all honesty isn't that much, but it would buy you groceries for some decent holiday dinners. And if you had 3 kids, it would get you some kind of, $25-ish gifts, which in all honesty, that's not that much, but it's a lot better than nothing, right?
Can I ask a question? I mean, this is just, I do go there, but just on occasion. Safeway is more expensive. And so is there a reason we picked, I know it's a Northglenn business and that is appreciated, but they are more expensive. Their items cost more. So is that
honestly,
something?
We're trying to share the, since it's a city purchase, just really trying to take it to not just one retailer, trying to be fair.
I have Councilmember Goff and then Councilmember Brown.
Thank you. Just like a point of clarification here. So the way things are worded, I think is kind of important. With this amount of money that we're giving, and I do agree with Antonio, I would be willing to go for a certain amount more. But the city would be giving this money to the Northglenn Foundation, and they're the ones that are going to kind of decide, what to do with it. And we're giving the guidance that we want this to be these gift cards for families in need for Christmas. But they're using that money right now to help people with other kinds of things as well, or I guess I should say CARES money. But so it's not like the city is just handing out gift cards like we did this summer when we did the goodie bags, for the summer, the 4th of July thing. This is actually going to the foundation, and then they're the ones that are going to manage and distribute the money. So I think I guess I'm willing, as Antonio said, to explain to people that that's what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think that it would be a good use of taxpayer money at this point because our city is a community, and communities help one another. And I think we are going to be able to do that. And there we have many individuals in our community that have suffered terribly because of the financial crisis, or they suffered from actually getting COVID, or knowing somebody in their family that did. And the issue with kids being at home is really affecting a lot of. It's kind of crazy to realize how dependent our economy is on public schools, but it's really becoming clear that is the case, and I hope that means teachers get more appreciation. But so I think I would support doing this, and I'm willing to discuss, or I would be willing to add increase the amount of money.
So for full transparency, I just want to mention that yes, the money goes to the community foundation, and the community foundation buys the gift cards, but there would be heavy staff input in this. Jenny ran this program before. Jessica is now on board and works very closely with our community members that are in need. So although the community foundation is buying the cards, this really has a lot of staff involvement and a lot of outreach to other community partners to try and make sure that we're reaching the people who are truly in need in Northglenn. So it's not the same as we just put something out there and you can apply. It's truly us searching for the people that need help that we may have missed with our other programs.
Got it. Councilmember Brown.
Hi. First of all, I want to start what I'm going to say is that I am a #1 proponent of Christmas. When I came home from California, I had to get a trailer to bring home all my Christmas ornaments from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. I have a problem with this because we do not just have Christians in our community. And we're talking about using taxpayer funding for a Christmas crusade when we have our Jewish community, we have our Muslim community, we have our Kwanzaa community. I would give anything I have. I routinely have just put a ton of stuff in the boxes, but this is not a fair representation of our community. And I'm willing to go any way that you all say, or that we all vote on. But I want to bring up the fact that it's not a true representation of Christmas, because Christmas does not affect everybody. We have residents that are not religious, who maybe do not believe in the same beliefs that we have. And like I said, we have so many different religions mixed into all this. How do we plan on taking care of those people? How do we plan on, I'm just not understanding how we can sit as a council and give money to something specifically Christmas crusade.
So you're not giving it the Christmas crusade. Sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to clarify. So, and if it is something, Becky, where we need to be mindful of messaging, I think that makes a lot of sense. But just as an example, if I look out at my school community, families struggle in the wintertime because it's cold and their heating bill goes up. Our families are struggling right now because of COVID-related issues with employment and all of that. Families are of all races and religion are struggling. So I have a school counselor and she comes to me and we do a thing, and I've got different churches that come to us. And when we put that list together, we have kids of all races and all religions. And we don't say, here's a Christmas gift for you. We don't give Christmas gifts to kids. We don't give Christmas gift cards. And so if it's a messaging piece, I think we can do that. I'm sure that's what Diana was going to speak to, but families are struggling right now regardless. And there are quite a few gift giving traditions that aren't Christian that do happen during this time. And so just something to think through. But Diana, what were you going to add?
Well, hang on just a second, please. My statement goes even into what you were just saying then. If we have so many people outside of the school districts and outside of our normal community areas that need help, then we should be looking at expanding or hitting more people.
Well, and I think we have. I think that's what we talked about tonight. And we've summarized how we've given our CARES funding, and we've summarized the utility support, and we've talked through some homeless support and eviction support and all of the things that we've talked about tonight. I think we've been doing for months. But what I hear them saying and what I know to be true is that schools are a center for really getting to know your families. So the family liaison position, they get to know what's mom and dad doing. Like, I know which of my families have employment issues, or they're paycheck to paycheck, or they just lost their job, or they just had to quit because they don't have daycare now that school is closed. Like, we know, we have that information. And so what I heard them say is that they were tapping into Northglenn residents specifically, but they were using that resource to gather the names. But I don't know, Diana, go ahead.
But we've never given money from a city council budget for this type of expense before. Am I wrong, Heather?
You're not wrong. Let me try to keep this really simple. The city can't take taxpayer dollars and just give it to residents. So the decision that we're asking council to make tonight is whether or not you want to grant $10,000 or more, if council decides, to the community foundation to then distribute through gift cards to families or community members in need this holiday season. So we as a municipality cannot just directly buy gift cards and give them. There's some statutory language, and honestly, we don't need to get into all of that tonight for simplicity purposes. But this is something new and different given the situation we're in with COVID and the impact with the recession and everything else we're experiencing this year compared to other holiday seasons.
Are there other cities doing anything like this, Heather?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. Diana, Jenny, Amanda, any of you know?
I don't know, but I don't think it's dissimilar to that outside agency funding grant program. I really don't. I mean, it's outside agency funding, which you guys have given to a variety of things, whether that's your Rotary Club or your local high school or your local food bank, that's all donating to charities. And that's essentially what this is, but it is above and beyond what you typically give. And the reason we're bringing it to you is we can sense that there's a lot of need in the community already. Obviously, Jenny's whole entire job is about keeping in touch with our community organizations and our schools and working with them and working in conjunction with them. And people know, oh, the city runs these programs. We'll reach out to them when we know we have families in need. However, what I wanted to say is I think you're absolutely right as far as it is holiday giving, as far as asking for donations, because that's, people tend to give during the holiday season. But as far as who receives those gifts per se, I don't think it's really, in this particular case, I don't really think it's for Christmas. That's one of the reasons I really like the gift cards, because if you're a family in need, obviously we're not going to be able to give people gift cards every month, but with the holiday giving program, at least you got a little help this month. So no matter what your race, denomination, ethnicity, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you're a person in need, you're a person in need, and this isn't an ongoing thing, but at least you were able to benefit from this program if you guys choose to support it. And I should say, if you choose not to support it, it's just some people we're going to have to be like, sorry, our programs that we've had in the past didn't generate as many donations just because it's hard times. We're really sorry, which is exactly what the nonprofits are doing. So I don't want you to think this is like, oh my gosh, we have to do this, because you don't. It really is your discretion. And it's very similar to stuff that you do with outside agency funding already. But you're right. It's our holiday giving program, but on the receiving end, I don't think it has any ties to any particular denomination.
Councilmember Witkovich.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to throw in my support. I definitely agree with the $10,000, and I would agree with the other recommendations to even bump it up to 15 or 20,000. I think Diana just explained it really well. I think you just have to demonstrate need. You don't have to have any sort of religious affiliation to benefit from this, and I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Wolford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've really appreciated all of the discussion and folks sharing the reasons that they support this particular program. And I definitely agree that there's a lot of need, and this is a really unusual time that I don't think we've ever experienced in the city. And I surely hope that we don't ever experience another pandemic. But I just so appreciate, again, everybody sharing their perspective. And I do support the program at the $10,000 level, and especially just based on some of the numbers I think that Amanda shared in terms of the number of families that have been supported thus far. And perhaps there's some way that, the foundation, as they're receiving requests and kind of doing their, due diligence, if they can let us know, maybe mid-December, if there's a need for additional funding or support, maybe we can have that conversation about it increasing at that point. But I'm good with the 10,000. Thank you.
Councilmember Downing.
Hi there. I just want to weigh in. I really do support the program, and I do support Ashley's and Antonio's feedback. I would actually increase it if there was a need. I think we have to wait and see if there's how many families that are coming forward. But if there is a need for more than 10,000, I totally support that. And I appreciate your input, Diana. It was very helpful. I just, for personal reasons, it's unfortunate that we have such a need in the community. And it's unfortunate that it just happened at this time during the holiday seasons that we are looking at giving gift cards or helping families. I think we need to do it all the time. I know we're not a social services, and I know we can't do it all the time, but it just happens that it's now. So definitely I support it.
So I just want to check in and make sure all council members get to weigh in. Does anyone else want to add, Julie or Randall?
Sure, I'll add in. Yeah, I support this program. I think, it's an unprecedented year, and we just kind of have to take that as it is. And I think that, we could reconsider giving or what that looks like for future budgets or anything like that. But right now, I think I'm okay with that 10,000 level, and hopefully it could really raise the spirits of, those 100 families in our community who need it.
Thank you. Randall, do you want to weigh in?
I favor it at 10.
Okay. So I'm with Antonio. I agreed with what he had to say. I think it's we are in a more fortunate position than other places, and this is a unique year. So so I don't know if we want to wait and see if the need goes up to increase it. How does that work timeline wise for the job that you're going to do, Jenny?
Yeah. Hey, Jenny, you want to jump in?
So I think we would have a pretty good idea probably by the end of next week, even if not sooner, because I already have quite a list of family liaison and counselors that are waiting for me to talk to them about our holiday giving program. So we would probably have a really good idea after being able to compare the list from Christmas Crusade and then also from what Amanda and the Community Foundation have already provided so that we wouldn't allow double dipping, if you will. But we should probably have a good idea by no later than next week if the families are going to, outweigh what we have in our piggy bank, I guess.
So I'm good. I mean, if there was a place for a compromise, I'd be good at committing 15. If that doesn't sit well with everyone, maybe there's a way we can make a quick poll decision or to say to Heather, that's our max, but we give you guys discretion after the numbers roll in. What do you guys think of that idea? Catherine's okay with that. Antonio, what do you got?
I think that's a great idea. I would recommend 15,000, and I would ask Heather to initially commit to 10,000, and if there's a need, she has discretion to use 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, whatever that need is. I think that's a good idea. I'm sorry I'm standing up and trying to eat a sandwich.
Okay. Okay. Standing up is a good thing. All right. Julie, did you want to add something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to stay at the 10,000 and, I recognize that this is a very unique year, and which is why I support this anyway, because it's a tough year. But I feel a little uncomfortable with kind of setting this precedence, and I feel a little uncomfortable with going above that. I feel even uncomfortable about the money that goes to the outside agency funding group as well. But I mean, that aside, I think I would feel more comfortable just sticking at the 10.
So do we want to vote? So I hear we got two people, me and Antonio, are okay with the max of 15, giving Heather some discretion. Catherine was okay with that too. And Julie spoke to the other side. So Randall, do you want to add?
Yeah, let me just concur with what Julie said. There's a couple things. It's like, and I see the need, and if we're in a position to be able to help, especially at this time in this year, this season, absolutely. But especially what Jenny and Julie said earlier too, it's just, this is still taxpayer dollars, and 15 is not going to be enough. Why not 17? Why not 20? And does there ever get to a point where we stop on this? And so how do you balance the good intentions? How do you balance fulfilling a community need for a part of the community? And how do you balance the honesty that we are beholden to our residents and taxpayers? And so 10,000, yes. 15,000 maybe, but I don't want to just keep saying yes to to more and more and more until we kind of, at a minimum, right, take a look at how it's happening, how it's being served, and so forth. And I think 10,000 is a smart move and a good move and a compassionate move. And I think that compassion has pragmatic barriers around it too, structurally, that we need to be at least cognizant of.
So a couple things that your comments made me think is that, obviously in a confidential way without details, we can ask Jenny to come back and kind of give us a summary of the families that were helped. So that might, just be interesting information.
Yeah.
Antonio, did you raise your hand again, or did I just not lower it? Okay.
No, I did not raise my hand again. And no.
Okay. Okay. Well, what I heard was support for the concept. So how about if we just do a real quick, raise your hand if you're willing to go to 15 and give Heather discretion on that spread. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that, I believe, moves us in that direction. So Heather, does that make sense? You guys can work together and...
It does make sense.
Okay, great. Well, I think everyone spoke to the fact that it is a wonderful gift to our community. So thank you for bringing that forward. And Jenny, thank you for all you do, connecting with our families, all year long. And Diana, thank you for being here. Amanda, you too.
I did, just to throw in there, thank you on behalf of the staff. Jessica and Jenny deal with people on a day-to-day basis, but I know Chief was he's almost wounded because of the limited number of families that they can help. And just a number of staff that really are used to big programs and used to helping people, that staff will be very thankful that we can help more people. So we appreciate it. Thanks.
And I'd just like to say thank you to the Community Foundation also for helping us be able to help the community in so many ways.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, that was the final agenda item. Are there any other topics for the good of council? All righty, seeing none, I hope you all have a great evening. We are adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.